Hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. Douglas Mackenzie and Jim Thompson here again to another of our cronies from around the Burns world. Hi Jim, how you doing?
Doing great, Douglas. Enjoying this time of year.
Good. The supper season nearly over for you?
No, I'll go away into March this year, that's me cutting back as well. But March is my last one, the middle of March.
Aye. Anyway, we missed you at the last edition when we were talking to Bob Stewart, because you were busy, but obviously you're a busy man at this time of year with loads of places to go to, people that want to hear you.
Yes, as I say, I've cut back though because my years are doing 30 and 35 burn suppers a year are long gone. I'm just too old for it now. But I still enjoy going to, particularly where I know the people, I've got to be honest and say.
Yeah, good. Well, folks, tonight's guest comes from the northeast of Scotland and has a number of talents to tell us about. A few of these are that he's a playwright, an author, a historian, an animal charity organiser or campaigner, and I'm sure we'll find out if I've missed anything. There's bound to be other stuff in there. Cronies everywhere, please welcome Mike Gibb.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Great to meet you, Mike. We always ask the first question in the same way. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Right. As you'll guess from the accent, Aberdonian, born and bred here. Brought up with my a father with a great love of burns. One wee story just to start it off is that we council house, we used to have a burn supper every year, and various folk would come to it. And slowly the number of kids coming increased. And I said to the father, why could we not have our burn supper? So we got the kitchen. He said, you can do it in one condition. You do a rest of the haggis and you can't get the book. So when I was 8, I learned address to the haggis when I was 8 and did it to the kids and we were in little burn supper. And it's amazing if you learn at that age. All the years since then that I've been addressed to haggis at burn suppers, I've never once gone back to the book. I remember it word for word from that first occasion. So that was the starting point with burns. I worked in business in Aberdeen for a long time, took early retirement, and started writing for the theatre. I've always been interested in theatre, and I kind of got pretty sort of depressed at the lack at that time in particular of Scottish themes that were in the theatre. So when I began writing musical plays and plays, and the one thing that it all had in common was that they've all been in Scottish themes. I've never written about anything else.
Very good. Well, let's take us back to the very beginning so that we can understand why you decided on the Scottish themes. Let's go back to primary school. Where did you go to school?
Went to school. I've got a great distinction. I went to 3 different schools in Aberdeen and they're all closed down. So I don't know if that's anything to do with me or not. I was at Link School, primary school in Aberdeen for 2 years, and then we moved house up to Northfield. And I was at Smithfield there to the left, and then I went to Aberdeen Academy, and I was 5 years at Aberdeen Academy.
All right. And what subjects did you do?
Not terribly well. I was quite keen on commerce and economics and things like that. And then I left school on a Friday, and I started work on a Monday.
Wow.
I got my new job. I didn't like any of the teachers very much, with the exception of the guy that was my economics teacher, who also happened to be the careers master. And he came up with an idea from it to go into become a loss adjuster. And
all right.
I liked the idea. So I left and I joined an Aberdeen company as an adjuster, and I qualified with them. And then I moved to McTears in Glasgow. And the rest of my life was with Robert McTear and Company, and then they got bought over. And I stayed there until I was in my 50s, and then decided I'd done that for long enough, and got it from there.
So the loss adjusting was I take it that wasn't something that you'd planned as part of
No.
what you were doing at school.
It's a very strange thing insofar as for some reason I wanted to become a surveyor, and I told the career master, and he got a letter in from the company in Aberdeen that were loss adjusters, but they were actually associated with a UK company, so William Baird and Partners. who were mainly surveyors, and he'd seen surveyors on their heading. And he says, "Oh, this might be of interest to you." But when I went to the interview, it turned out that one of the surveyors in Aberdeen, they were insurance loss adjusters. And the guy, the boss man, explained what it was, and I said, "Oh, I fancy that. Fancy it better than surveying." And I did it, and I'll be honest, up until I get worn down by it in my latter years, I loved it. I loved the uncertainty of loss adjusting, and you go in and you park your car in the morning, and 10 minutes later you're away to a big fire or something like that. So and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Good. Well, for the benefit of our audience, in case there's anybody out there that doesn't know what a loss adjuster is, you can maybe tell us a bit about the job.
Well, basically, it's changed slightly insofar as insurance companies are now more inclined to do a lot of smaller work themselves. Basically, insurance companies have always taken the view that when a claim arrives, they want somebody independent. The idea of a loss adjuster comes in, they're paid by the insurance company, but they are independent. And we always, we're quite fierce about that, the fact. I largely dealt with major. For example, up here, I did all the claims for Aberdeen Council for all the school fires and something like that. And then during the oil boom, I spent several years travelling back and forth, 4.5 hours each way up to Loch Keishorn, up in the west coast, where they were building the biggest concrete structure in the world, and where safety was not a major consideration during the early months of it. And every day there was something. I would go up there, I would drive from Aberdeen 4.5 hours, spend maybe 3-4 hours there, drive 4.5 hours back, go into the office the next day, and the phone would ring to say, "Overnight a crane fell down on top of something. Would you like to come up and see it?" And back at the car again. So it was hard work, but so it was just dealing with the claims on behalf of insurance companies of all varieties of different claims.
Yep. So why was it called loss adjusting? That's the thing I could never understand. Because
people say insurance assessing as well, but I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It was just I was a member and qualified as a member of the Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters. That's the way it was established as that back 200 years ago.
It wasn't loss adjusting, and that you were trying to minimise the loss for the insurance company.
No, I mean, we used to, obviously we got accused of that because we were paid by the insurance companies, but genuinely no, you went there with a very fair. I mean, I think at one stage I quite fancied branching out and going to America or something. Now that would have been a different world altogether, because there you are there. Let's see how little you can pay. Not here as such. We were pretty fair. In fact, I still meet people occasionally I dealt with, and I don't think I've ever had anybody come back to me and sort of say, "You try to screw us at the ground." Almost the opposite. You would go there and you would say, if a person was quite innocent and quite naive, you would go and say, "Look, hang on, you're entitled to claim for that. Do you appreciate that?" "Oh, I didn't know." "Right. No, let's include that, because you wanted a fair assessment and a fair settlement." And I could say hand in hand that I went through my career with that, and then I got tired of it. I got bored. I think as well, when you get to a certain age, and say I was in the 50s, you began to lose a wee bit of confidence. You're inclined.
Yeah.
I remember going in days and thinking, I was doing all the figures. I better double check that and treble check that and so on. And then it's not fun anymore. When you're young, it's great. Not older. Nothing is.
So let's jump forward then to the point of retirement from loss adjusting, and you were telling us what you moved on to then.
Yeah, well, basically, I've always written since about I don't know, maybe 60s, 70s. I wrote for magazines. I got involved in writing for about 20 years. I think I wrote for an American show music magazine as a UK correspondent. And what I did is we would go and cover stuff that was coming, and I took on all Europe. So we would suddenly go away to like this as well. We would go away over to Amsterdam to see Peter, went to Copenhagen, went to Malmo, various places like that. And I wrote this. It was a quarterly magazine, and I wrote to them. And the thing that always got me was the fact that places like Denmark, they had a big sort of musical theatre scene on pretty serious subjects. I mean, they weren't light-hearted sort of stuff. And you come back here and you've got Brigadoon, and I thought, oh, there's more to it. There must be more to it than that. So I just suddenly decided, I'm going to write a Scottish musical play with a bit of guts to it. I wrote a thing called A Land Fit for Heroes, which went back and took in, it was too big a scope because I thought, it's the first one, I'll cover everything, but it covered the First World War, and it covered the formation of the Labour Party and all kind of things. And it was reasonably successful. It's done a few times.
Yeah.
It was done up here, it was done in Greenock, and it was done in Glasgow at one time. But that got me going. And once I started, then as soon as I had that, I better write another one. And that just for about, I don't know, 15 years or something like life. That was very much my life. Was just
And did you wrote the music as well? Did you?
No musical taste, talent at all.
Right.
I've written with various people, mainly two. There's a girl, she was called Mary Payton. She's now Mary Warren. Stays down in the Glasgow area now. And Mary and I wrote 3 different things together. And then when I came on to, there was a chap called Kevin Walsh, who is now based in Edinburgh. And Kevin and I worked on 3 different things as well, quite successfully actually. That was probably my most successful spell, was writing with him. Because I wrote the a musical, they call it the book. I mean, that's just the script, if you like. And the lyrics. I wrote the lyrics for the songs as well. I also wrote straight plays as well. I mean, I've written about 3 or 4 straight plays without any musical involvement in them. So, but all, as I say, all on Scottish themes, mainly traditional and mainly historical. But I wrote for almost 20 years ago, I suppose now, I got asked to write a play for the 20th anniversary of Paper Alpha, which was a thing altogether. So I did that kind of thing as well, which was hard work.
Yeah, I would imagine it's quite difficult to make something like that into a musical.
Well, that was just a straight play.
I'm sorry, that was just a straight play.
Lest we forget, it was just a straight play.
Yeah, okay.
Which I've since converted into a book, but that's a different thing. It's funnily enough, the first one that was like that, I wrote a thing called £5 and 12 Bairns, which is still my favourite thing I've ever written. And it was about the Tay Bridge disaster. And it was a play with music. The music was part of it. It wasn't a musical, for obvious reasons. There was no song and dance numbers. I just took that, and what I've always tried to do is write things that are character driven. So you've got interesting people in them. And when I did £5 and 12 Bairns, it was really about 3 women that were left behind when their husbands were killed in the Tay Bridge disaster. So that was the kind of way I tried to tackle these kind of subjects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you didn't feel challenged with McGonagall with the Tay Bridge disaster?
No. Somebody actually gave me a book of McGonagall to say you should try and write a story about him, and it was fascinating. He's a fascinating character in his own way. But I thought, no, I couldn't actually see that as being a worthy of a stage play. I must be honest.
Very good. And also you've written a few books.
I've just last week I wrote my 17th book, so
wow.
That's a bigger, wider sort of scope of things. I'm involved. I was involved 30 years ago setting up a dog charity here, a dog rehoming charity, which is still going, I'm pleased to say. And I also I still run a charity as well. But when I first started, I started writing books to start raising money for them. But I mean, I've written all kind of weird and different things. I've written books on. I say I converted the stage play, the Piper Alpha stage play. I converted into a book called "I've Never Heard a City Cry Before." So that I did that. So So I really know that the book's an awful lot easier than this in work in the theatre. Theatre is very hard work. A book, a theatre you need a director, you need actors, you need all kind of things, and you're at the mercy of them as well, which I've never been very good at. Having to sort of take other people's views on what we should do with that. When it's a book, you write it, you get it out, you get it published, and you get self-published in my case, and you get it out. And I raised quite a lot of money for this charity I'm involved in through my books. But then I really enjoy doing it, and I love the writing side of things.
Oh, very good. And why the particular interest in dogs? Is that did you grow up with dogs?
I don't know. I mean, I've had dogs all my life. Started off. I actually started yesterday, funnily enough. This new book came out last Thursday, and it's called Tales with Tales, 2 different spellings. And it's 5 short stories about people whose lives are affected by dogs. And I do talks anyway. I do talks around Probus clubs and, all sorts of organisations. And I did my first talk yesterday. And it started off by saying on my 11th birthday, my mother came in with a shopping bag and said, "There's sweets in it for you." And when I opened it, it was a 6-week-old Westie pup. That was it. And I also said in the speech that if Disney had been writing the story, him and I would have gone, that dog and I would have gone through our teenage years. In her case, she took kidney failure when she was 2 and she died, which you'd have thought would have been enough sense to me to say, stay away from dogs, but I'm afraid not. I've had them all my life. And I've been involved with the charities on the rehoming side of things, and it's been interesting. It's always been.
Yeah. I was quite fascinated that I read that you're involved with a charity in Portugal.
Yeah, that's what I've been running now for about 15 years now. I came across this shelter in Portugal, and what got me was the people working there. The woman that runs it works full time in Lisbon, does this in her whole time, spare time, and they currently have got 400 dogs and 200 cats in their care.
Oh, wow.
And no paid staff other than kennel maids, nothing else. They all do it voluntary. And they're just unbelievable people. They're amazing. So I came across this place when I was on holiday and just fell in love with it. So we've been 15 years now, Friends of Bianca Friends, it's now called. And we think, we've revamped the whole place.
Yeah.
So, because when we arrived there, the biggest thing was they had 300 dogs in space for 150. So the rest were all just chained up to little wooden huts. So we got them all off of that, and we built a puppy house, and we built a cattery, and we got a medical facility, and it's changed a lot. But of course, it's always something else needed. So I'm very dear to me, that, I must be honest.
Very good. And if you send us a note of the charity, we'll put it on the end piece so that if anybody wants to donate, they can do.
Yeah. I say the charity out there is called Bianca, which is just all it is. It was named after the first dog that came in who happened to be white. That's as simple as that. But what I run is called Bianca Friends, and that's an Aberdeen-based charity. We raise the money here, but every penny we raise goes straight out to them to help with the shop.
Yeah, you can send us a note of that. And the latest book, you said all the proceeds from that are going to this charity.
Yeah. I've been lucky with that because there's a thing called the Doric Board, which is a local organisation, and they do an annual grants thing for Northeast. So I applied and I got the money to print this new book. So it's coming out. So it's only, it sells at $7.99, but every penny is going straight out there. So they only arrived last Thursday night. That was the first of them. So they're going well. Again, so I'll give you a wee note here of that as well.
Yeah.
Right, Douglas.
Yeah, that's good. So if you give us a note, that lets people donate to the charity, or even contact you to get a copy of your book.
Yeah, I'm delighted to sign them and dedicate them. Anything you like, I'll do it. To make money, so like that. Yeah, all happy to do it. It's quite good fun. I mean, it's not a heavy book. It's like they're all set Northeast stories of different eras. Way back 1935, one of the stories. Yeah. And they're not even dog stories. They're stories about somebody with their life at some stage. In fact, one of the night is about the third last page before a dog appears. And so it's people that the effect dogs had on their lives.
There's a dog there somewhere. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And you've got a couple of books about the Northeast and the music of the Northeast.
I wrote Forgotten Heroines of the Northeast, which was about various people from this part of the world: Mary Garden, Mary Slessor, and Lorna Moon, and like that. And I wrote Forgotten Heroes of the Northeast, which again was the same thing. I wrote the Piper Alpha book. I wrote Songs of Northeast Scotland, which actually I can expand in the Northeast a wee bit to get it in. And I think there's probably about 5 chapters on that effect Burns to a degree, because I took it round the country. So things like Berks Aberfeldy and basically Crankeen and McPherson from Banff and
Yeah.
so on. And it mentioned the fact he went to see Neil Gow when he was going through Inver. So there's quite a bit about Burns in that particular book as well.
So you could do a tour of the Northeast and know which song was associated with each place.
Yeah, yeah. It was there's something like about 15, well, maybe more than 15 chapters. I can't remember now. And they're not all Burns, but the one of the bits is I do follow the Highland tour,
Yeah.
which went through from that from Go to See Neil Good, and then up into the Highlands I think I did a chapter on the Bob Dylan song Highlands, which was very much based on Burns as My Heart's in the Highlands.
Yeah.
So I did all that. So that was last year's book, or 2024's book. So one a year.
One a year. Oh,
And every
excellent.
year, as my wife will tell you, every year you'll hear the same story. That's my final book. I'm finished now, and then suddenly go, would be a good idea, and I start all over again.
So have you got plans for 2026?
No,
No.
I haven't got any clue, but I didn't have any clue last year when I started this other one. Suddenly something came to one night, and I suddenly go, oh, maybe we could do that. There'll be something. There'll be something in there.
Very good, very good. You mentioned your wife there. Do you want to give a wee mention to the family?
Yeah, well, I mean, wife's Norma. Been married for finally to put it mildly, I think it's 58 years this year.
Oh goodness.
I've got a son. Lives in Switzerland. Lives in Lausanne in Switzerland with a Ukrainian wife who's lovely, and I've got a granddaughter out there, and then I've got a daughter who's married with two granddaughters living quite close by us. And
Very good.
I have a black lab called Emily, and she's got to get attention as well. She has got to get attention. And she's sitting actually looking at me on my settee at the moment. So
And when we were trying to organise this, you said you spent quite a bit of time at Blairgowrie. Is that your sort of holiday home?
We moved. We bought a static caravan there, and fell in love with the place. And August the year past was our 20th year we've been there. Second caravan, but second site.
Oh wow!
And last year we can go anytime. But we're down there to try and escape from the snow here in the beginning of January. We did escape, but so that. But generally, it's March, October time we go. And last year, because we had an unusual Scottish summer with a lot of sunshine, and we were there. We worked out. We were there 103 nights last year, so our money's worth out of the caravan. I love Perthshire. I've always loved Perthshire, and it's a nice base. You can, you're in Aberdeen. You're stuck away up here. You're an hour and a bit before you get to anything like civilization. So it's from that point of view. You're down in Blair. You know what I mean? We go through. Have an association with through the books I've written for the PARS, the Dunfermline Athletic Football Club, which I have an association with. So we go down to Dunfermline from time to time, and again, it's an hour from the caravan, which is great.
So a PARS supporter rather than an Aberdeen supporter.
I used to be an Aberdeen supporter. I was in Gothenburg and all sorts of things, and I had a son who got spoilt by going to the cup finals 82, 83, 84, and twice in 86, and seeing them win them all, and decided he was bored, and he ended up supporting the Dunfermline. But the unfortunate thing, he was like 16 at 17 at the time, and he wasn't able to get to the game. So Dad ended up driving him around these places, and I just got involved. And I liked it was the days when, well, they still are in the second tier, but they were the first division, it was called, and I loved going to all the wee Brecons and Forfar and all these kind of things. And I just kept going there. I mean, I saw an association or affiliation with Aberdeen. I did one book for Aberdeen, but they weren't the most helpful to deal with. I did a book on when they got a new mascot. We did an illustrated book on that, but they just didn't promote it. Whereas I've done two Dunfermline ones. In fact, one of my few biggest claims to fame, if you like, was the third Dunfermline book of what was called Heroes of the Holbeath Road. And Alec Ferguson did the foreword for it. He did the foreword.
Very good.
So that was quite nice. But they're a lovely club. It's very much a fan club.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
was
I think when you get outside the big clubs,
yes.
there's a nice community there.
There is
Uh,
very, and it's you know, and it's. I mean, I like Dunfermline anyway. It's a nice place, but you know, the one club in there, and they're very loyal supporters.
yeah, very good. Um, you briefly talked about Burns earlier on,
Yes,
so I think it's time we get talking about Burns in a bit
yeah,
more
okay,
detail. So I'll get Jim to start that process.
Right,
right, that's
just
fine. Yeah, yeah.
you finished off telling us when you started by doing the haggis. Where did it go through there?
Where did I go from there?
Uh,
I mean, you know, the main, well, obviously I went the same route as everybody goes. I used to do, for example, when I was running the local dogs charity here, we always organised a burn supper. And I ended up kind of, you know, doing everything at it with everybody else. I was doing, you know, rest the haggis and the mortal memory and so on and so forth. And I still do that. I still get called upon from time to time and do that. I think probably, you know, if we're talking about my association with Burns, the main thing was writing Clorinda the musical. You know, that came about. I'd always liked the story. I'd always liked the Nancy McElhoe story, and I felt that there was a stage work in that. So I'll speak a wee bit about that.
yes,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, right. Well, we got funnily enough, there's the chap I mentioned before, Kevin Walsh, who's now in Edinburgh, is a composer, and he at that time was living in Brecon. He had a recording studio and he's like that, and he'd recorded an album called Clorinda's Reply, which was basically what she would have written back to Aoife and Kiss. And there's a lovely song, and that was the name of the album. And I really liked it, and I got in touch with him, and together we sat down and said, right, why don't we do Clorinda as a musical play? So we got to work on that, and we wrote what I thought was a good score to it, and then we appointed a director. We rehearsed it in Edinburgh, and we opened on the 25th of January 2008 in the Netherbow Theatre, which is part of John Knox House, the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, and is close to Canongate Cemetery where Nancy's house is buried. And then we took it round Glasgow to St Andrews in the Square and Cumbernauld, the Byre at St Andrews in Aberdeen. The story I was going to tell you, and you can cut this out if it's too long-winded or too boring, but we got it cast. We had the money to do this professionally. Often we do it with community cast, but we had the money to do it. Cast of 4, got it, 3 of them in place, no bother at all. The Burns we recommended this guy who was Scottish, but had been working in London a lot. Got a look of him, absolutely perfect. You know, quite a nice looking young lad, quite slim. Got some recordings of him, sounded great. But the only thing was he was working in Vienna at the time, doing a play in Vienna. As chance would have it, we were going to Europe on holiday, and one of the places we're going was Vienna. So I met him in Vienna, went to see him in this play. Great, no problem. Got him cast, everything. Now, we only had money to do short of 3 weeks rehearsal. So we're starting on Monday and we're opening 2 weeks on Friday. Another boat. Nothing, no problem. Rest of cast in place. The Sunday night before that Monday, this guy emails me to say he wasn't being released from his contract for at least another week, but you'll come in, he'll be a week late. No, you won't be, pal. Not, we were only 3 weeks rehearsal, so you're going to miss the first week. So big panic. So I happen to know a chap called Alan McHugh, who appears regularly up here in the theatre and so on. Phoned him up and said to him, look, but big panic, how are you placed for the next one? You happy to do it? Yeah, no problem. Great. That was easy, wasn't it? 10 minutes later, the phone rings. I've looked at my diary. There's a week in the middle I can't do. Right, what have you got then? Oh, so he gave me this guy called George Drennan, who's quite a well-known Glasgow-based actor, George. George might do it. So I phoned him up and he said, well, yeah, I should be okay. I'll come through Edinburgh tomorrow and let's, look at that. So I said, well, okay, that's fine. So sitting, I remember it was 11 o'clock, he was coming to the rehearsal room, and I stood outside, and this car drives up, and this very tall, in guy with receding hair arrives, and I thought, please don't let it be George Drennan, because I've never seen anybody look less like Robert Burns in my life. So he walks in about and it says George Drennan. I thought, oh no. Anyway, he comes in. So we sat around the table, did a reading. The rest of it did a script for about 3 weeks, and anything like that. George got his script. We sat around, and he was the star. He was instantly a star. He was from Ayrshire. He was the accent. He was just, wow, there's Robert Burns. He does not look it. And we said, right, the director said, hang on, there's a wig maker in Edinburgh that makes John Kearney's wigs. Let's go. Went into there. If you got someone like that, came back. We gave it to George. He went into the dressing room as George Drennan. He came out as Robert Burns. He was
excellent.
Slightly too tall, but other than that, and he was spectacular. They all were. We had, we had two girls come up from London, Sabrina Carter and Gillian Budd, who had both been in big shows, Les Mis and Wicked in London, and they did the parts. And with a chap, Ian Hammond Brown, and the four of them just worked brilliantly together. So it worked in extremely well. And I tell you, final story on George. This is a professional. Doing St Andrews in the Square, first night, did 2 nights before he starts the show. He's going, we said, right, show's cancelled. No, I'm going to make it. So he gets a bucket at either side of the stage. And he goes on stage, delivers his line, and goes out and is sick in the bucket and goes again. So we said, George, you can't keep going on like that. But so that was Clorinda. It was great. It was like that. What we then did, we knew we couldn't afford to do another big production like that. So what we decided to do was scaled it down. And we scaled it down to a short thing with two, a girl, Michelle Bruce, a chap called Mark Kidd. And they did it all over the place. We did it at the World Burns Federation in Glasgow one year. And we did that. And then the next thing was somebody in Pittsburgh was putting it on. So they said, right, okay. A week before that, the girl doing it out there, Helen broke her leg. So we had a big panic. And they said to us, right, can you send out your Clorinda? So Michelle, they said, hang on. They said, we'll pay everything, airfares, accommodation, the whole lot. So this girl, Michelle Bruce, came from here and went out to Pittsburgh and did it in Pittsburgh. And then final thing, the last thing really had been done with it was people in this theatre in Jacksonville in Florida, but they did the whole show. They did the complete show. So it's been done. I can say that I've had a play. It was on in America for a week. So that's like that. So that's Clorinda. We did
very good. We
did a CD of it, which was great. It worked really well. It's nice. Very. Kevin was very, very talented. He is very talented. Did beautiful arrangements, and in the back of that, we then got the thing to do a CD for Outlander, this, the big American thing. So we did, Kevin and I did that together as well. So that's basically the Clorinda story.
Excellent. And did you do take any particular approach to Clorinda?
No, basically it was her telling the story. It started off with a song called 40 Years On. And it was her looking back 40 years after the Herb Burns had parted. So it started off with that, and then went back to them. We brought James McElhose into it as the rotter he was, and then it carried on with the story, and of course, and we carried it through. And then it was quite light-hearted, most of it. The way very good director, lassie Suzanne Loftus did it. She did a super job. But then the second half and there's a lovely song in it, which Jenny Close sings about how we boy, the Burns, the illegitimate son that she had to Burns. And we just carried it through, right, just through to the time that she went away to rejoin her husband out there. And he's writing over A Fond Kiss for her. We used A Fond Kiss. The rest of the music was all original, but we used A Fond Kiss in it. And then back onto that. And it's a nice story. I mean, it's the reason we got the Outlander gig, if you like, to do that, was somebody in Brazil had bought this CD and thought that the storyline was a bit like Outlander and suggested it to Diana Gabaldon, who's a writer of that. So it came out of the fact that they thought the Burns and Nancy story was kind of similar to the sort of romance story of Outlander. So it's just a nice story, I think, anyway.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And any chance of a revival?
Well, anybody ever wants to do it out there? I mean, I never say no, never. I was sitting here about a year ago, and I wrote a play called Children of the Sea, which is about the Eyemouth fishing disaster. I'm big in disasters, as you can see. I'm into disasters. And out of the blue, I got an approach from a company down in Portsmouth wanting to do it, and it won an award down there. So, you know, if anyone out there is interested in doing, we have got the music's all on disc, we've got a CD of all that. It can be done with a cast. Well, we used the four because that's what we could afford. But that meant that one of the girls did Jean Armour and Jenny Clow, and the guy did James Markle Hose and Gavin Hamilton Burns' part. So that would have been six would be ideal, or more. So if there's any companies out there, amateur companies or anything, I mean, I'm biased.
Yeah.
It's a good piece. It was very well. A couple of the critics didn't like it too well, but you know I'm not a fan of critics. You know, to me, their ability to write is to write scathing things about things. The reaction we got, the audience reaction we got was great all over the place. It worked really well. So yeah, that's let everyone know. Just get in touch. Would be delighted to see it. I mean, I'll never do these things again because I mean that just about killed me. I produced it. I mean, can you imagine you're lying in your bed at 10:30 at night, and you get somebody phoning to say that your Robert Burns has got norovirus. And we were sold out to Dubai 3 nights and 3 nights at Aberdeen, and we needed that money to break even.
Right.
And we thought if they all take it, we're finished like that. So no, I'm too old for that now. But certainly happy for if anybody was interested, just let me know. I could send them the script and so on.
Very good, very good. And is the CD the full play, or is it just excerpts?
Just the music. I've got there. Does that show up there? There we go.
Oh wow!
So
So
for the two of them.
So would you mind us tagging a couple of songs on the end of this
Not at
podcast?
all. No.
Right,
No.
okay.
Do I send you the CD or?
We'll talk when we stop recording and we'll sort that
That's
out.
fine. Yeah, no, yeah.
That'd be great.
I'll give you a
Good.
couple of things I think might be the best ones for it. You
Yeah.
know?
Okay, doke.
For it, yeah. So it's quite good. I mean, I think it works well. There's obviously a lot of ballads and so on and like that, but there's a couple of kind of comedy songs if you like, light-hearted songs on it.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I can send you that then. Yeah.
That'd be great. Jim, I've kind of kept talking there to Mike.
No, this thing just goes where it goes, Douglas, as you know. The only, well, one of the questions I've got is, what about you personally? What would be, for example, your favourite Burns poem or song or whatever?
Well, I mean, I love Tam O'Shanter for obvious reasons. I like going down to Ayrshire to see all the paintings, doing. In fact, that another wee thing. I'll come back to that. But is the very first thing we did this was a showcase, and we did it in the Roselle Gallery in Ayr. Where they've got the Tam O'Shanter paintings. We did it to try it out to see how it worked with different people. I think probably Avon Kiss, and that's what really inspired me to do. Because I think it's just a beautiful bit of writing. I think it's just a wonderful song, and just there's lines in there which sums it up so neatly, succinctly. I think is Burns at his best. So, but there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, I suppose at the end of the day, it's all down to personal taste.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are so many. A man's man for all that. And there's so many different things in there. They've all got their own meaning for. But I say probably if you pin me down, and one thing I did mention, and everybody will know already, but when I was doing this last songs, this North East Scotland book, I referred to the that I'd ever heard was "My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose." So you can't go far wrong with that as well.
No. I mean, the Clorinda thing, again, I think I was there when it was done at the Federation, and I just found it amazing, to be honest with you, because it was something unique and different. in terms of the
Yes.
story, and a lot of folk don't understand the story. And Nancy was a very competent individual in herself, without
Oh, very much
any
so.
doubt.
Yeah.
And her husband was indeed a terrible person.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it worked quite. I mean, it was. We scaled it back to that version, about 40-minute version or something we did there, simply because, you know, the cost of doing things, it wasn't sensible, but it worked quite well. Just keeping it. I mean, obviously, we cut out the Gina Armour story and we cut out the Jenny Close story. But you know, the basic story of the two of them, it is, you know, a romantic, a love affair between two people at the end of the day. And I think all the actors we've ever had involved in it have all quite enjoyed doing it. We all looked at each other, myself, Kevin, and the director. Okay, that's it solved. That's that problem solved. She was that good. Lovely voice and just great poise. I think from what you were saying about Nancy McElhoe's, the lady she was, they needed somebody with poise, you know, because she was that sort of style of person.
She certainly had the way of sorting burns quite quickly, and when he was misbehaving.
Oh, aye. The director Suzanne did a great job, I thought, on that. You know, almost it's saying some moments almost making it slightly racy, and then taking Nancy's view. Because I mean, Nancy, I think, admitted herself that she was very attracted to Burns, as all women seem to be very attracted to Burns. But you know, it was nice that you could keep the love affair on that the way it was, like that, the platonic affair as it was.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they were socially miles apart.
Oh yes, yeah, very very much so. Different people all together, you know. So no, it was an interesting experience. Yeah, it's one of the things I'm fond of stuff, and I look back. You know, I mean, I never anything to stage I don't like. You know, I would never do that because I would feel uncomfortable. But I think I've got maybe three favourites of all the stuff I've ever written, and Clarinda would definitely be one of them. I enjoyed. I felt involved with it. You know, I felt the story was there, and I like to be the chance to tell it in its own way.
Must have been an awful lot of enjoyment out of all these plays and books and stuff.
A lot of hard work, you know. A lot of sleepless nights, I'll tell you that. I was a phrase my wife would have told you at one stage. I would say to her, never let me do this again. Just don't let me ever do this again. Because the night before, you're going on stage. And I remember I did a play. My favourite place I've ever worked in was Dundee Rep. I just love Dundee Rep Theatre. It's just a great 450 seater and, you know, all around, and it's just magic. But I was getting to the stage where I was, you know, worrying about. So one night I was really uptight. We were doing something on the Dundee Rep. I decided to stay in the green room, and it was during the World Cup, and the TV on there. And instead of the TV being on the stage, I had it set up to watch the World Cup football, and I'm sitting there, and the play's going on in the background. Eventually, I thought, this isn't right, and I walked out to see it, just to stand in the wings to watch it. And as I walked out, one of the actors forgot her lines. And I thought, no, straight back through and watch football again. You know, as soon as these things start, you know, and the problem is the audience never notice.
Yeah.
If you know every word, you notice something is wrong. You know, so no, it is quite hard. It's quite a tough thing to do. The books are much easier.
But with all that pressure of writing, do you get a chance to get involved in any other Burns activities? Are you a member of clubs?
Well, the local Burns club, yeah. I go and I normally speak to them once a year on some of the books or something like that. I go along, and I know all the people.
Yeah. So which Burns club's that?
There's nothing. I was involved. Member of the Wallace 700 as well. John Mackay, who used to be secretary of the Burns Club here. He runs that as well, and things like that. But it never a lot of time, I must be honest. You know, I retired and I've got less time than I think when I was working, between, you know, charities and books and all these sort of things. And I try and fit in all these talks I do. I mean, the talks I use to sell books as well. And I haven't been, but last winter, I'm a wee bit inclined if somebody phones and says, can you come and do a talk? I never. And then last winter, I found I had 16 talks lined up between November and February, and I was getting, oh no, 2 in one day. I remember I thought, no, this is just getting too. I'm not in the first flush of juices, So I think the time has come maybe to start acting your age.
But see, before we finish, because we're getting to run out of time, I was intrigued by you saying that you'd included a number of Burns songs in your songs of the Northeast. Do you want to? Can you remember enough about what you wrote and what you included to tell us which Burns songs you used?
Well, I'm just trying to think back on. I did it when I did a talk about it. I did it geographically clockwise, starting off in Aberdeen. So I don't think there's anything in Aberdeen. And going down the coast, as I said, I did certainly Birks of Aberfeldy. I did Braes of Killiecrankie and the McPherson's. I can remember, was it Lament or Farewell at Burns? Whatever one Burns called.
McPherson's Farewell.
McPherson Farewell. The Highlands, which is was a Bob Dylan there, and there must have been something. I'm sure it was 5 that mentioned Burns at one particular stage. The rest of the songs were all just associated with the area, not necessarily him. I said I did mention it was when I was doing what was it I was doing? Oh, it was a Dougie MacLean song about Neil Gow's Apprentice, the song Apprentice, and I mentioned there in Burns the fact that Burns on his Highland tour had stopped off and to see Neil Gow at Inverness and so on. But I'm sure there's another one beyond that. I can't.
I just wondered if you'd found connections with any of the places that Burns had ancestors from, the Stonehaven and places like that.
I didn't find it, well, not musically. I mean, I know the Fatherland Burns called quite well, and I know Andy Hall and people like that are there, and I've spoken at their Burns supper as well. From that, but there was nothing. Actually, this area was one of the poorest for actually finding. I mean, I did the Northern Lights old Aberdeen, just by an English woman. It was that was to me was the interest of it. It was a strange sort of thing. And the Bonnie Lass of Fivey, which is great. I managed to find it. There's an onstage version by who is that again? Some of the I don't remember who it is now. Some of the rock bands. The Bonnie Lass of Fivey is part of their onstage act and so on. So it was all these kind of quirky stories that I fitted it into to do that. So it was an interesting experience. It was interesting to actually research. I quite enjoyed doing the research into where all the background was from all these people.
Fantastic. Well, Gibb, anything else you want to ask Mike before we close?
Well, I think this has been a totally different in terms of it. This is Douglas. And I'll tell you, it's been most enjoyable. I'm sitting here.
That's good. I thought you just
the thought of the work that you've put into it is covering my hair, what I've got left.
I know. It's been an experience. I mean, to be honest, I look back and I wouldn't have missed any of it. I must be honest. It's been there've been moments. I've said. Why am I doing this? Why am I getting involved? But there's been a lot of pleasure out of it as well, in its own way. And when it does work, there's nothing better. I say when we did things like £5 and 12 Arms, when it really worked, a really good production, and you kind of go away feeling that you've done something. But then the next day it's all forgotten about, and the set's broken down, and you start all over again. But it's had its moments.
Fantastic.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Well, Mike, absolutely great that you were able to spend some time with us. That's fantastic. And we'd just like to thank you for telling us a bit about your life with Robert Burns. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
the soil, who've earned their living, we get honest toil. When da past the war, we had 7 mouths to feed, so I worked the land to attend to our need. But I was still writing when I felt inspired, hoping that one day it would be admired. But folk, they would tell me, you're wasting your time, scribbling down words and then marking them rhyme. But I wanted to walk as a man among scribes, so I turned a deaf ear to all the barbed jibes. Now my words have been captured for eternity. Robert Burns, the poet, that's what they call me. I'll admit I've had days when I've woken depressed, but no way a gift I have truly been blessed. This wee book has brought me good riches and fame, and all o'er the country they now ken my name. This little thin volume of laughter and tears is filled with the labour of so many years. My heart is richt gledden nu, just with the thought that folk around Scotland this wee book have mocht. A Saturday night in a cotterman's house, an address to the deal and an ode to a louse. My words have been captured for eternity. Robert Burns, the poet, that's what they call me. My words have been captured for eternity. Robert Burns, the poet, that's what they call me.
I was barely 16 when I met him. He appeared so charming and sweet. Earnestly he wooed me, relentlessly he pursued me. I was helpless in his arms, and I fell down at his feet. Before I was 18, we married. In wedded bliss did I bask, but doubts they filled my mind as I began to find that a very different person lurked behind the mask. How soon my love turned to hate. How soon I realized my fate. For the man who had amused me, tormented and abused me. How soon I knew the truth, but by then it was too late. Quickly our honeymoon ended. A bleak future began to take shape. It was not what I sought. In his web I was caught, a life sentence I must serve, with no hope of escape. The man I had loved changed before me. He became so cruel and so vain. Laughter turned to screams. Nightmares replaced dreams. The hands that once caressed me now brought me only pain. How soon my love turned to hate. How soon I realized my fate. For the man who had amused me, tormented and abused me. How soon I knew the truth, but by then it was too late. How soon I knew the truth, but by then it was too late.
They'll say nice to meet you, do hope you keep well. For a start they'll be oozing with charm, but then they'll all treat you just like a bad smell when they find out you work on a farm.
Ach, that's nonsense, Gav.
When they hear you have skill with both plough and the quill, their reverence will soon disappear, and you'll quickly see they're not like you and me. For old Ricky's gae different to here, to here. Old Ricky's gae different to here.
They're very well schooled and they all do aspire to great wealth
and think they can gloat. Aye, but dinna be fooled by their splendid attire, for they've nae drawers underneath their fur coat. So ignore all their posing, it's you that's been chosen, a poet that's mair than their peer. For those bows and those bells are gae fou themselves, and old Ricky's gae different to here, to here. Old Ricky's gae different to here. The way that they talk, you may find it might irk, and the words that they use cause surprise. But you do your best now and try not to smirk when they talk of your lovely brown eyes.
Oh, Gavin, I didn't ken you cared.
Now, Rab, you must mind that what is in store is meeting high society.
I ken that, Gavin.
And remember, you'll find Holy Willies galore, for that tune's full of great piety.
Oh, this tune, isn't it?
As you drink fae their cup, keep your breeks buttoned up. Watch your tongue now and try not to swear. Keep your urges reined in, nae whiskey,
Nae gin.
Old Ricky's gae different to here, to here. Old Ricky's gae different to here.
Well, they're recht to be proud o' sublime Holyrood, where deed kings and queens rest their banes, and for centuries now that great castle has stood.
Ach, it's nothing but a rummel o' stains.
I'm sure I'll be applauded when my poems I recite.
Oh, you'll soon be the toast o' the place, and though you'll be lauded with all of their might. Remember, they've more than one face.
Haven't we all, Gavin?
So if you're aware that you're missing all day and you're lonely amongst that great steer, then leave the genteel and come back to Moskiel. For Auld Reeky's gae different to hear, Auld Reeky's gae different to hear.
With these relics of a romance that once shone so bright, we toast our final parting on this our final night. No man can hold time back, all pleasures will pass. Our love now lies in fragments, just like a shattered glass. So let us raise a parting glass, now we're to be estranged, and rejoice in captured memories, in the words that we exchanged. Cast our minds back to the day when first you stole my heart. So let us raise a parting glass, and then forever part.
Only time will show me if the choice I've made is wise. Will I find a much changed fellow, or the husband I despise? But one thing that is certain, one thing that is clear, this vessel will remind me of the one I held so dear. So let us raise this parting glass. Now I'm about to leave and recall those happy times with pleasure not to grieve. Cast our minds back to the day
when first you stole my heart. So let us raise a parting glass.